This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Your hosts are Seth Jacobson and Patrick Heiler.
Hi, I'm Seth.
And I'm Patrick.
Chapter 37. Performances in Samara, and our symbol is the white lion.
Which is clearly Elaine's symbol, because she's the one up on the high wire?
Yeah.
High wire.
Tightrope?
Tightrope.
I feel like maybe that's the same.
I feel like you can have like a slack line that's a tight wire that's low off the ground, but a high wire is going to be like something high up.
Gotcha.
That you could fall off of and hurt yourself.
For what seemed like the 100th time, Nynaeve held a lock of her hair up to look at it and sighed. Thick murmurs of talk and laughter from hundreds, if not thousands of throats. Distant music that was nearly drowned out drifted in through the wagon walls. She had not minded spending the parade through the streets of Samara in the wagon with Elaine. Occasional peeks through the windows had convinced her that she would just as soon not be out in those packed crowds, yelling and barely making way for the wagons. But every time she looked at the brassy red of her hair, she wished she had been doing somersaults with the Chavanas rather than dyeing it. Carefully not looking at herself, she wrapped up completely in her plain dark gray shawl, turned, and gave a start to find Brigitte standing in the doorway. The woman had ridden in Clarine and Petra's wagon during the parade, with Clarine altering a spare red dress she had been making for Nynaeve at Luca's direction. He had given Clarine her instructions before Nynaeve ever agreed. Brigitte wore it now, her black-dyed braid pulled over her shoulder, so it nestled between her breasts. Totally unconscious of the low square neck, just looking at her made Nynaeve fold her shawl tighter. Brigitte could not show a fingernail more of pale bosom and retain the slightest claim to decency. As it was, such a claim would be feeble, really quite laughable. Looking at her made Nynaeve's stomach knot up, but not for reasons of clothes or skin. If you're going to wear the dress, why cover up? Brigitte came inside and closed the door behind her. You're a woman. Why not be proud of it? If you think I shouldn't, Nynaeve replied hesitantly, and slowly let the shawl slide down to her elbows, revealing the twin of the other woman's garment. She felt all but naked. I thought, gripping her silk skirts hard to keep her hands at her sides, she held her gaze to the other woman. Even knowing she wore exactly the same herself, it was easier that way. Brigitte grimaced. And if I wanted you to lower the neck another inch? Nynaeve opened her mouth, face going as scarlet as the gown, but for a moment nothing came out. When it did, she sounded as if she were being strangled. There isn't an inch to lower it. Look at your own. There isn't a tenth. 3 quick, frowning strides, and Brigitte bent slightly to put her face right in Nynaeve's. And if I said I wanted you to rid yourself of that inch? She snarled, showing teeth. What if I wanted to paint your face so Luca could have his fool? What if I stripped you out of it altogether and painted you from head to toe? A fine target you would make then. Every man inside 50 miles would come to see. Nynaeve's mouth worked, but this time no sound emerged at all. She wanted very much to close her eyes. Maybe when she opened them, none of this would be happening. With a disgusted shake of her head, Brigitte took a seat on one of the beds, one elbow on her knee, and, her blue eyes sharp. This must stop. When I look at you, you flinch. You run about waiting on me hand and foot. If I glance for a stool, you fetch one. If I lick my lips, you have a cup of wine in my hands before I know I am thirsty. You would wash my back and put the slippers on my feet if I let you. I am neither monster, nor invalid, nor child, Nynaeve. I'm only trying to make up for... She began timidly and jumped when the other woman roared. Make up? You're trying to make me less. No, it's not that, truly. I'm to blame. You take responsibility for my actions. Brigitte broke in fiercely. I chose to speak to you and tell around Riyadh. I chose to help you. I chose to track Moghedien, and I chose to take you to see her. Me. Not you, Nynaeve. Me. I was not your puppet, your packhound, then, and I will not be now.
You cannot have my pain. Always brings me back to that quote. But yeah, basically saying you can't take responsibility for my actions. You can't take the guilt on.
Jesus, woman, get your shit together. Like, stop cringing and sobbing and this is it. This is where we are now. We have to move forward. We can't go back.
I liked you because you were kind of a bitch. Don't not be a bitch. you have opinions. I'm glad you have opinions. I want you to have opinions. Don't pretend you don't have opinions. Don't pretend you're a simpering sop. Like, be the person that you are. Be the person that I saw in Till I Run Riyadh, who, made me step out of the shadows and stand up for a better world. Like, that's what she wants, not this Nynaeve who sucks.
Exactly. And that's why Brigida's poking fun at her more or less about the dress. It's not about Nynaeve's modesty. She's just trying to make Nynaeve stand up for herself and act like an adult.
Right. She's just finding something that Nynaeve is sensitive about and trying to force her to like, oh, let me tell you whatever you want. Well, what if I make you do it naked, huh? What if I make you strip out of that cloth? Like, are you still gonna fucking like do it? And Nynaeve's like, yes, no, god damn it. And it's just like poking the bear, trying to get the internal bitch that is Nynaeve up and going,
Yeah. And they talk about that a little bit more, and I feel like this is when Nynaeve and Brigida manage to come to some kind of understanding, or at the beginning of something at least. Because Nynaeve keeps trying to beg off and say, like, no, you're wrong, like, this is my fault, I should never have asked you to do those things, and whatever. And Brigida's saying basically, like, yeah, you may have asked me to do them, but I did them. Like, I took that into consideration and followed through. Like, it's not your fault that I failed.
No, and it sort of accumulates in Nynaeve saying, hey, if you want to put an arrow through me, I'd understand. Which is like as close to suicide, I think, as Nynaeve ever gets. And I think she only says it because she's convinced that Brigida would never do something like that. But still, it's sort of confirms a bit of what Julian was worried about, that Nynaeve is maybe a little bit of suicidal here. Maybe a little bit desperate to somehow make up for the loss of honor in the same way that, like, Aviendha does after she sleeps with Rand and she gives the dagger to Elaine. Is like, she doesn't want to die, but she feels like
she has to offer.
Dishonored her to the self. Yeah. Exactly. Like, that has to be something that she's giving to the other person.
In real life, we just finished talking about the last chapter, but for anyone that's listening to this, a few days afterwards, should know that in the last chapter, we talked about this a lot, where the responsibility is weighing on Nynaeve, and in turn, Brigida's annoyed at Nynaeve taking responsibility for Brigida's actions, but also, I can understand why Nynaeve might feel this way. Like, this may be the end of Brigida's thousands and thousands and thousands of year-old life because Nynaeve made some kind of mistake or made a bad judgment call. Although, I mean, they made a bad judgment call together. So there's that too,
Sure. Nynaeve didn't run, and Brigida makes that point to say, like, hey, you could have run. It was an opportunity there.
You didn't do anything shameful.
You were free, and I was not. Yeah, you actually saved me. Like,
at every step of the way, Brigida says to Nynaeve, basically, you did everything that you could when you could. And that's it. That's all anyone can really ask of anyone.
Just do your best, and that's one of the things I always liked about Brigida as opposed to some of the other Moraine characters, that, like, just expect people to do their best and don't expect more, like, you push people beyond what they're capable of, you're going to break them. And that's kind of what I feel like what happens to Egwene is she just gets broken by the ambition and the need to use her to save the world.
Shortly after, we see Brigida already has a bunch of supplies spread around to make herself a decent bow. She describes the one that Luca gave her as a knot-riddled branch broken from a cross-grained tree by a blind idiot in the middle of the night.
One of my favorite quotes, these couple of chapters. I, like, highlighted it and circled it, and I was like, that's fucking funny.
I like you, Nynaeve, she said as she laid everything out. Thorns, warts, and all. I no longer do, as you are now. It's a good line. I'm not going to follow through with the whole dialogue, but this is a continuation of the back and forth between the two women.
Threatens to beat her like Littell did, or like Sarandon, the way Sarandon beat her. And then on her way out, like my favorite, do not forget to curtsy like a good girl on your way out.
Ooh.
Oh, it's like, oh, man. That is just really designed to make Nynaeve angry as you can make Nynaeve. And she puts up with it pretty well for Nynaeve. But Brigida's goal is to piss her off, and
Nynaeve is starting to get angry, but Brigida's poking at her on purpose. She wants Nynaeve to get angry and get some backbone and start acting like the woman that she admired before.
And not this person who feels guilty about stupid things that weren't under her control.
And right before Brigida dismisses Nynaeve in the what you read, I just wanted to read that Brigida is already here. She's already saying, I will make you see the right of this, or I will drive you away. There is no other course. I cannot, will not, leave Elaine. The bond honors me, and I will honor it and her. And I will not allow you to think that you make my decisions or made them. I am myself, not an appendage to you. Now go away. I must finish these arrows if I am to have even a few shafts that will fly true. I do not mean to kill you, and I would not have it happen by accident. And then she says, don't forget to curtsy on your way out.
It's like, no, I'm not going to kill you. You have to deal with this shit.
Curtsy like a good girl.
Yeah.
That's rough.
And if you don't stand up for yourself, I am going to make you feel like an idiot.
What a very Sorelea or Mullane thing to do.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're going to act like a little girl? I suppose you're a little girl then? Why don't you dress like one?
Mm-hmm. Then I'm going to treat you like one in all the ways that matter.
But I mean, it gets the point across, I guess. We just see a description of all these menageries coming together. There's just tents and people everywhere. The people from the city are all out wandering around and going from tent to tent. And
I had a few questions about the animals. Lions and boar-like capers. I think we've talked about capers before in their cages. Kapars, whatever, however you want to say that.
Yeah, some kind of anteater-like animal.
The strangely horned deer from Arafel and Saldea. Those are just I think those are just reindeer.
Oh yeah, I thought there might be elk or a moose.
So yeah, something like that. Yeah,
but some kind of northern hooved, antlered animal.
Brown furred creatures with big eyes and round ears that sat placidly eating leaves from branches gripped in their forepaws. What the hell is that?
I feel like if it was a panda, they would call them pandas. Or they would describe a bear, rather, is what I meant. So I
want to say like a koala.
That's what I thought, yeah. Because otherwise I think Nynaeve would say it looked like a bear, but it had white and black markings, and it just sat placidly eating leaves. And then I would be like panda.
Right, panda.
But
it's brown. Well, both Paradigm Flux and Ogier Tendencies agree that it's a koala bear. So okay. I'm going to go with the fact that 4 of us here all agree is a super consensus.
Some waddling, brown-furred creatures with big eyes and round ears that sat placidly eating leaves from branches gripped in their forepaws.
So we're seeing some really diverse wildlife, maybe from like the Isle of the Madmen?
Could be. It could be a Sharan animal or something maybe too.
Currently, koalas are suffering quite a bit in Australia from the fires. Please go help the koalas.
Oh man, yeah, they need, what's the kind of tree that they eat almost entirely?
Eucalyptus. You can lick ass.
Eucalyptus, I get it. Aren't going to do well if there isn't much forest left.
No, the habitat's gone, and a lot of them are just like, hey, are like really badly burned, because they were basically in the fires.
God, that's awful and terrifying.
Yeah.
We have it bad enough just south of where Seth and I live. Well, if you drive up for about a day, it gets real dry and the wildfires get pretty bad. It's scary. I know it's bad in Australia and other places that have prominent dry climates too.
The planet is on fire. Temperatures just going up and up and up and up and up.
Is Brazil still on fire? I haven't heard an update in the news on that since the fires were really big.
I mean, I think they're still burning the forests. I don't think they've stopped. As far as I know, nothing's changed policy-wise. And remember, the forests aren't burning. People are burning the forests.
Yeah, I don't think I've gotten an update on that since like October. But yeah, this is the point of the chapter that we were talking about earlier when we get to where, okay, so we have a long narration of Nynaeve looking at the animals. As she walks by, she sees Tom putting on a show. Tom was juggling fire and eating it as well. 8 flaming batons made a perfect circle. Then suddenly, he had 4 in each hand, one sticking up from each cluster, deftly popping each upraised flaming end into his mouth in turn. He appeared to swallow, and took them out, extinguished, looking as if he had just had something tasty.
My usual comment about how ridiculous the skill level of juggling is with Tom. That's a lot of flaming batons.
Fair enough, but magic is real.
Fair enough. But still really cool. Love the performances. Love all the description of the performances. Really hope we get to see some of that visualized.
Oh, heck yeah. I enjoyed Luca was there, frowning as anxiously as a husband outside a birthing room. Because this is Luca's big night. I think there was a throwaway comment in the last chapter that I probably forgot to bring up, where Nynaeve kind of offhandedly says to Luca that this will likely be the biggest crowd he has ever had and will ever have at this gathering in Samara.
Because this is the prophet, right? Has been gathering all these people. These are all...
Well, the prophet's there with his followers outside of the city of Samara, and not to mention that on the opposite side of the river, there's a bunch of White Cloaks camped. So there's enough people to be housed in a very large city, camped around a medium-sized city. And there are a bunch of menageries coming to town, so people are primed and walking around and checking out all the different ones. This is a perfect opportunity to suck some people in.
Why is there always a Starbucks right across from another coffee shop? Same reason why there's a bunch of menageries in the same place, because people show up wanting that product, and it's easier to steal a customer for somebody else than to generate a brand new customer.
Louis Black, the comedian from like the early 2000s. I don't know if he's done anything recently, did a bit about that exactly. He's
still on Daily Show sometimes, yeah.
It's like, you see a Starbucks, so you walk in and you get a delicious beverage. Then you walk outside and there you see, right across the street, a Starbucks. Oh, well, this was delicious. I guess I'll go to that one. He does it better.
But it's a property of industry that, hairdressers clump together. You tend to find pet stores clumped together. Like if you're looking for a product, chances are you're going to find them. Fast food restaurants are clumped together. Like that's just how industry works. Is it sees success and copies it. Location and everything, and it works. It shows that it shows that like people go to those places. Like if you're looking to get a burger, are you going to go to the place that has 4 different burger shops, or the place that has 2 different burger shops?
Yeah, I always thought that the reason places do that is because if you want to buy a dining room table, it's really convenient to walk down the block and look at 100 dining room tables, and then you pick one. So these businesses benefit from being near each other because people know you go to this block if you want to buy furniture. I don't really do that kind of shopping. It's just my understanding that that's what a lot of people do. I go to Goodwill and see what they got.
Thrift shops also tend to be clustered together. I'll tend to find 2 or 3 of them like within a couple of blocks of Goodwill.
I got my dining room table because a restaurant I worked for a while back was just getting rid of some. They were buying new ones. They were going to throw them away, so I asked. It's a perfectly good table. There's a little gum under it, but whatever.
I've always claimed that I live on the detritus of society. The society generates enough junk and extra stuff that if you just ask around for free shit that people are getting away with, you can pretty much just survive on that.
Oh, heck yeah, I look around for it. I was thinking about this today, actually, because my little office space now is getting pretty full. I was just thinking about, man, we've acquired a lot of furniture, but then you have the futon there that Julia's brother didn't want anymore. And he just asked us if we wanted it before they got rid of it, and I took it. Oh, I'm not going to go through all of it. That's boring. But I've paid for 1 or 2 things in this room, is the point. And discount rates when I did buy anything.
I am not looking forward to moving because I haven't acquired that much stuff, but you remember all the stuff that I had. Washer and dryer that gave you a black eye,
Oh gosh, yeah, the washer and dryer.
Yeah, I've got the fridge, I've got 2 fridges, the whatchamacallit, I don't even know the right way to, just the fermentation fridge and kegerator, both of which don't work, so I have to, dispose of them somehow.
Gotta ditch that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, if you need help, we can make a day. I can definitely help you carry stuff up and down.
The one that Travis has a bunch of friends with trucks. We're going to go with friends.
Oh, well,
yeah,
trucks
friends.
are better than bike carts.
And so I think I'll be able to grab him and grab a truck and do a trip to the dump. And then I may grab you on... There will be a moving day, though. So I'll probably let you know about that and be like, Patrick.
Yeah, ask me. Be more than willing to carry that stuff back up the stairs. I carried it down.
I know. I remember. Thank you.
Ago.
I appreciate it. It's been almost 3 years now. I may end up selling the washer and dryer, depending on if we end up moving into an apartment with the stacked washer and dryers. I've seen a lot of those recently, and these wouldn't fit.
Yeah, I mean, those are nice appliances. Those are modern.
They are extremely nice.
That's nicer than what I have in my house. A lot.
No,
nicer.
I looked them up. They're $1,000 each. New.
Yeah.
And they're 3 years old, but they're still in great shape. I got these free from somebody who was spending money to store them, and I mentioned I was moving into a place and needed a washer and dryer, and they offered to give them to me because it was cheaper than storing them. But when I looked them up, they're like I said, they're the $1,000 brand new washer and dryer, and she'd never used them. So, yeah, they're super nice, and I want to keep them. I don't want to give them up, but if I move into an apartment that can't hold them, I may have to sell them.
Yeah, you should. I mean, if you move into a place that has a washer and dryer, sell them.
Sell, yeah, and then the cash, I can store the cash or replace them. I may have to sell them and put the money back into a stacked washer and dryer because some of them have stacked washer and dryer hookups. Mm. She sees Uno.
At first, she just vaguely recognizes him, but she's busy. She wants to go see Elaine's performance, and Julian does a fun thing. This was fun to watch. Julian, sorry, I keep calling him Julian. I think I keep making that mistake.
Yeah, Julian's my middle name.
That's a nice name.
So I always had an affinity for Julian Sandar because obviously, Julian. There's no Seth, but there's a Julian. It's about as close as you can get.
So Julian walks up with this big mug of ale, sloshing over the side, and he's stumbling and drinking from it. And Luca yells at him "Hey, dude, you're gonna break your fool neck. What be careful. You're not supposed to be drunk while you're doing that." And Julian just waves him off, and he's all wasted appearing. And I imagine he hasn't drank any at all. Climbs up the ladder and sets down his beer and starts crawling across the rope. Julian turned as if lost. He appeared too drunk to see or remember the ladder. His eyes fixed on the rope. Tentatively, he put one foot on the narrow span, then drew it back. Pushing the hat back to scratch his head, he studied the taut rope. Abruptly, bright and visibly, slowly, he got down on hands and knees and crawled wobbling out to the rope. Lucas shouted for him to come down, and the crowd roared with laughter. Halfway across, Julian stopped, swaying awkwardly, and peered back, his eyes latching onto the mug he had left on the ground. Plainly, he was considering how to get back to it. Slowly, with exceeding care, he stood, facing the way he had come, and wavering from side to side. A gasp rose from the crowd as his foot slipped and he fell, somehow catching himself with one hand and a knee hooked around the rope. Luca caught the Tarabonner hat as it fell, shouting to everyone that the man was mad, and whatever happened was no responsibility of his. It's a good act. I'm skipping a bit. With an obvious effort, Julian managed to catch the rope with his other hand and pulled himself along it, hand over hand, to the far platform. Swaying from side to side, he brushed his coat, tried to pull it straight, and succeeded only in changing which shoulder hung down, and spotted his mug at the floor on the other pole. Pointing to it gleefully, he stepped out onto the rope, again. And so he plays this game, where he acts like he's so wasted he has no idea what's going on, and then eventually
And Julian never drinks. He's not a drinker.
I don't think so. Or very little if he does.
Yeah, I feel like he has a mug of wine with Tom every once in a while. But
he drinks a ton of tea. I wouldn't surprise if he drinks now and then, but...
Leia says that he never drinks. Yeah.
Oh, Leia's saying he's never drinks. I believe it. But it's all an act.
The drunkenness, yeah. And he's pretty good on the roofs with the high walking and all that kind of stuff.
And on the second attempt.
The other thing I always wanted to ask, how realistic is it for Elaine to have learned how to do all the things she's done in the time that she's done it?
Well, like I would say to the last thing, realism isn't really...
Isn't real?
I don't know. Perhaps with the crutch of having the power, she's less afraid and can therefore learn more quickly. She's also training under some of the finest in the world. There's that. But yeah, her act sure does go well. Without the power.
Right. Because like up to the point where she's like using the power, I'm like, I buy it. And then this time I'm like, oh, I want her to break her full fucking neck. Like, she can't, it hasn't been that long. She can't have been that good. To be doing flips on a fucking rope? Seriously? Okay, anyway, moving on. I mean, but I guess in the same way that we can be like, it's ridiculous that she can do this, it's the same way that Rand can do the weaving of, like, gateways spontaneously and, you know, learn all, you know, like, there are these supposed to be these equally skillful... Train
with a sword for a year and become one of the finest swordsmen on the planet. That's exactly not how that works. But
so I feel like in a lot of ways that's what Jordan is doing with these like ridiculous displays of skill, is saying these are our heroes. They can learn pretty much anything they want to learn pretty much instantly. Deal with it. Whether it's sword fighting, whether it's weaving, or whether it's like tightrope walking.
The wheel wills it. I pretty much just have the readout, which is a lot of Elaine's performance.
Face like a bloody queen.
And after Julin, I'll read a little bit more because I feel like this chapter is going to be bare bones. It was pretty short. Julin's second attempt. This time, at least half the onlookers shouted for him to go back, shouted that there was a ladder behind him. The others only laughed uproariously, no doubt waiting for him to break his neck. He walked across smoothly, slid down the rope ladder with his hands and feet on the outside, and snatched up the wooden mug to take a deep drink. Not until Luca clapped the red hat on Julin's head, and they both bowed, Luca flourishing his cloak in such a way that Julin was behind it half the time, did the watchers realize that it had all been part of the show. A moment of silence, and then they exploded with applause and cheers and laughter. And then it's Elaine's turn.
Star-Spangled Pants.
The return cartwheels went perfectly, and the landing. But Nynaeve did not look away, or loose her hold on Luca's sleeve. And, mind you, Luca doesn't understand why Nynaeve is afraid, but Nynaeve is afraid because Elaine isn't using the power.
Yeah, up to this point, she's done this a million times, and Nynaeve's like, yeah.
There's no risk of her falling. Yeah.
No risk whatsoever. And now there is a large risk.
After what now seemed the inevitable pause for applause, Elaine returned to the rope for more pivots, one leg raised and whipping down and up so quickly that it seemed she kept it outstretched the whole while, and for a slow handstand that lifted her straight as a dagger, white slippered toes pointed to the sky, and a backflip that had the crowd gasping and her swaying from side to side, only just catching her balance. Tom Marilyn had taught her that, and the handstand. From the corner of her eye, Nynaeve caught Tom, two places down from her, eyes riveted to Elaine, poised on the balls of his feet. He looked as proud as a peacock. He looked ready to rush forward and catch her if she fell. If she did fall, it would be at least partly his fault. He should never have taught her those things. One last passage of cartwheels, white legs flashing and glittering in the sun, faster than before. A passage that had never been mentioned to Nynaeve. She would have eviscerated Luca with her tongue, had he not muttered angrily that Elaine adding to the act just for applause was a good way to break her neck. One last pause to pose for more of that applause, and Elaine at least climbed down. Shouting. The crowd rushed in on her. Luca and 4 horse handlers with cudgels appeared around her as if by the power. But, even so, Tom beat them to her, limp and all. Nynaeve jumped as high as she could, just managing to see over enough heads to make out Elaine. The girl did not seem frightened, or even taken aback, by all the waving hands trying to touch her, stretching between her and circling guards. Head high, face flushed from effort, she still managed a cool and regal grace as she was escorted away. How she could do that, garbed as she was, Nynaeve simply could not imagine. Face like a bloody queen, the one-eyed man muttered to himself. He had not gone running with the others, but merely let them stream past. Roughly dressed in a plain coat of dark grey wool, he certainly looked solid enough to have no fears of being knocked down and trampled. He appeared as if he could use that sword. Burn me for a sheep-gutted farmer, but she's flaming well brave enough for a bloody queen. Nynaeve gaped at him as he strode away through the crowd, and it was not his language, or rather, it was partly. Now she remembered where she had seen him. A one-eyed man with a top-knot, who could not say 2 sentences without the vilest curses. Forgetting about Elaine, she was certainly safe enough, Nynaeve began pushing her way through the throng after him. Yeah, Leia, I think we can say that Elaine had skill here. I mean, she trained hard, and I can maybe, as I attempt to buy it, that she's been trained all her life, so it's not difficult for her to do things like stand in a circle of men that are guarding her and mildly wave to a crowd of people. That's literally what she's been trained to do her whole life.
Oh, I think she's referring to the...
Oh, of course. But I mean...
You're talking about, like, the performance of... And like...
The posture, the bearing...
Massaging a crowd. Yeah, totally. That she looks like a performer because in some ways being noble is being a performer.
Yeah, the balance and presentation and all of that, I feel like she would have a good basis for. But she would certainly need to learn how to walk on a damn rope. I mean, that's kind of the real important part here.
Well, and the way you learn to do a tightrope is you do it close to the ground, and she sort of not cheated, but she shortcutted that by having the one power be the ground for her. But I imagine she trained intensively with Tom to get to this point. But she only cheats when she's training. She's just not cheating in this final performance. This is all her and skill, and it's pretty badass.
Yeah, and I've had people tell me the way you get good at something like a slack rope or a tight rope is, first you lay the rope on the ground and then you walk on the rope. Don't fall. Then you take the rope like 4 inches off the ground, walk on it, don't fall. And you just keep going, and eventually you're 25 feet up in the air and it's nothing to you because you've done this 1,000 times,
And same with all the stunts and stuff is like, especially if you can do a flip already.
Yeah.
Like learning to do a flip on a tightrope, you just do it on the ground and then do it a few inches up and repeat.
I've tried some slack lines. I think I walked a length maybe once or twice, but I almost always end up falling. One time, actually, I was in a rock gym trying someone else's slack line. I got like halfway through, slipped, fell, face first, but in such a way that I landed like with the rope from my forehead down my chest, like across my body long ways, and I just bounced and landed like on my butt next to the rope, which was only like 3 feet off the ground.
Still an entertaining
Yeah,
match.
It was pretty funny. Everybody was like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like standing, and I'm like, "Wow, I don't know. I look okay. I think I'm fine."
Is anything broken? I mean, so.
Yeah. Worst comes to worst, this was like a 3-foot drop to like a padded gym floor. I would have been fine. But yeah, I went down face first.
Sometimes, though, I'm amazed how fragile our bodies really can be, though.
Oh, God, especially as we get older. I hate to think about it these days.
Don't remind me. I've been having teeth trouble. Although mostly I've gotten that taken care of.
I'm past invincible phase. I'm now in the... Can I buy more healthcare phase? How much healthcare can I afford?
How much healthcare do I need? How much you got? Take it all.
The answer is very little. That's what I can afford.
white spangled banner.
Spangled. You know, I never really thought about that word, but you don't hear that much, do you?
It's what Elaine's pants are.
Spangled?
No, Star Spangled Banner. Oh, say, can we see Elaine's sparkled pants?
Ah, spangled. To cover with spangles, or other small, sparkling objects. Wow, thanks a lot. What's a spangle, then?
Something you cover objects in.
That's a bullshit answer. If you can't define the word without using the word, then I'm not sure what to tell you. Merriam-Webster.com. A spangle is a small plate of shining metal or plastic used for ornamentation, especially on clothing, or a small glittering object or particle.
Is that a spangle in your eye, or are you just happy to see me?
It's like when you have a drink of whiskey on a hot day and get it from the couch too fast. Everything's spangled. You know? Starry vision.
Yeah. I never get it from drinking, though.
Oh, I think it's heat and dehydration. That's why I say,
okay.
If you have a couple of whiskeys on a hot day, you're setting yourself up.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or
support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?